As South Africa slowly approaches the 2024 elections, the active participation of youth is pivotal to shape the future. A youth engagement forum aims to empower young people to be more engaged and informed. To now help us unpack the landscape of our youth and the engagement forum, we're joined by a panel of very young people who are ready to take on the country. We have Zoleka Monta, who's an international youth leader, Gugulethu Mtshali, the founder of Echoes of 76, and Donald Mkhwanzi, the Gauteng Provincial Legislature Youth Parliament member. Guys, good evening and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So you are very young people who are actively involved in ensuring that the future of young people goes forward. Gugu, maybe let's start with you in terms of what you perceive to be the impact of democracy. 30 years on, I can imagine that many of you guys were not even born yet in 1994. But just the impact of democracy on your generation as opposed to what it has been to other generations.
Thank you so much for having us, and we're happy to be here to talk about the young people and for the young people. I think democracy has really put us at a very critical point. The youth of 1976 really knew what they were fighting for. They were fighting against apartheid and they were fighting to not learn in Afrikaans. We, as we stand today as the youth of 2024, or post-Born Freeze, let's call it that, post-apartheid young people, we're not really sure what we're fighting for. There is so much that we have on the table. There's unemployment, there is free education that we don't have, and a lot of other things. So yeah, I think it has put us in a very tricky situation. I mean, we want to be free. Being free is great, but it's tricky for us. We can never have one voice.
There certainly are many voices that need to come around the table in order for young people to propel the country to the next level. Zoleka, you are an international youth leader. How do you believe South Africa has achieved a lot of what it has achieved in the 30 years? And what do you see as some of the challenges that face young people today?
Oh, like Gugu has mentioned, there is quite a lot of challenges that we can speak about, but I guess we should be celebrating because it's 30 years of democracy, and people fought for us to be here. There were leaders back in the day who fought for us to be here, especially young people. We had a discussion with Gugu earlier on how the youth of 1976 is the reason why we even have this democracy. They led a whole revolt of, widespread revolts around the country. So it's very important for us to acknowledge that it's because of them that we sit here today and we have the privileges that we have. However, there are challenges that we are faced with as young people. There's a lot of them. We can speak on corruption, unemployment, load shedding is also one of the challenges that we face. Youth unemployment rates are crazy. So we can go on and on with the list, but there's a lot of things that young people are faced with. I could even add on substance abuse because it's also one of the challenges that young people are faced with in this country. Yeah.
Of course, I mean, it's a ripple effect in terms of the socio-economic issues that young people face, because when you're faced with poverty, then the probabilities of crime and the use of drugs also then increase. Donald, maybe let's bring you the thorn amongst the roses into this conversation. You started off in the Children's Parliament, and now you are in the Youth Parliament representing young voices. How important is it for young people to start having their voices from a very early age in shaping policy and how democracy is going to unfold going forward?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. It's important for me to outline this scenario for you. Let's take the battlefield as the future. And then let's take all the leaders as the contestant, the only contestant who are enjoying the freedom of being the only contestant. And then there's young people who are on the sidelines. They're always complaining. But for you to change everything, you must come to the battlefield. So it was important for me to be involved in the Children's Parliament, the Youth Parliament, and now in mainstream politics. So as I grow, I saw a need to be involved, because then this future that these old leaders are messing up is our future. And also in terms of freedom, I need the audience or everyone at home to answer these three questions as they define the term freedom. Are we free from poverty? Are we free from crime? Are we free from economic oppression? How do you then convince someone that we are free when a student will sleep in the streets, but an official is sleeping, is staying in air conditions offices in Cape Town? Is that freedom? How is it that we are free when police stations, the police, are scared at 10 o'clock in the evening? They lock the gates because they're scared of thugs. Are we free? So it's really a lot, but in a nutshell, I really had to go into the battlefield. And young people must go to the battlefield to change the status quo. We must fight these old leaders till they go. Then we can get new leaders in the form of us young people. Thank you.
Let's speak about that in terms of the young and the old leaders, because that's quite often a conundrum and not only in politics, in business as well, where you have older people, and my personal belief is that you need the older people for their wisdom, for their guidance, and the young people for their vibrancy and for their innovation. Can we not find ways of working together and finding solutions together as young and old, as opposed to just the removal of old people in places which they are? Because at some point they were also those young revolutionists such as yourselves, fighting for a certain struggle. Gugu?
I believe that they see us as a threat. So it is so difficult to even sit somewhere with the old people who are ruling our country to speak about anything, because they believe that we are a threat. They see us as people who are after their positions, whereas we are only after a better South Africa. We just want a better future for ourselves, and the next generation. So that is a problem. We obviously need guidance from them. We would love to have them at our table, also on the sideline, guiding us while we lead. But they see us as a threat. That's the biggest problem we have right now, that they will only give you an opportunity up to so far. Going all the way, they're not going to give it to you because they're like, this person's going to take my position. So to them, it's a greed thing, and they really see that we are that powerful. So I think it's a compliment to young people for them to see us like that, but it is an advantage to our society.
So both Donald and Gugu, you both sit on the Gauteng Provincial Legislature Youth Parliament. Yes. Being a structure that I would imagine created by older people. So when you say they see you as a threat, when they create such structures and they allow you to sit there, how do you guys even meet each other around the table? What are your discussions that lead to a perception that there's a threat from young people?
The thing is, young people are coming with fresh new ideas. Do you think Newzroom Afrika can give you a fresh new idea? Can you think Newzroom Afrika can reform the education system? She won't. That is why if a young person for example, from the ANC Youth League would propose a vibrant, future realistic solutions, they will always be sidelined by these old leaders. We cannot really rely on people like Newzroom Afrika. And I need to state this. We're not saying all leaders, all of them, they should leave, they never served well. We're saying as a singer, if you know you failed on a mission, you should descend so that another person can come and carry on with the mission, so that we can see where we are going. And also need to caution that nowadays we have young people masquerading as young people who are in fact with pure intentions, because they can see that the notion nowadays is that we need young people. So what they do, they take advantage of that. They go to parliament, they sleep in committee meetings. We must caution against that, because right now, every political party is pushing young people. But are they capable enough? Will they bring fresh new ideas when they reach there? Or when they get there, they'll just post TikTok and Instagram, take pictures that I'm able to travel the whole country using the state money. So I should caution against that. That as much as we need young people who are capable. So people like Newzroom Afrika, for example, you take Naledi Pandor. Naledi Pandor is served well. But also at some point, I believe that she's even retiring. It shows that she's a good singer. But people like Newzroom Afrika, people like Jacob Zuma, they don't want to retire. They should leave so that young people can ascend the stage and take the country forward.
Zoleka, when it comes to leading as young people, does it start in structures such as parliament, in legislature? Where do young people need to start being active citizens in their small little communities where they can actually make a difference?
It starts with you. Everything starts with you. As much as we can, point fingers and say that, this needs to be fixed by the government, but it also starts with us as young people, with what we are doing in our local communities. Are we partaking in local meetings? Are we reading the policies? Are we reading the manifestos to understand them? And you raised a very important point on maybe they should guide us, like older people should guide us. I strongly believe that we do need to be guided, because we also still fairly young in these spaces. We need to understand how things are ran. There's, protocols on how things are done. So I do believe that we do need guidance. And I do believe that there are other, older leaders who are not as bad, but majority is you know, yeah. But I do believe that we need the guidance, we need a balance. I would say 80-20, 80% young people, and then 20% older people just for guidance. That's what I strongly believe in. But I think it starts with us educating ourselves and also just being the voice. Like us being here, we are being the voice for other young people out there, which is a very great privilege as well. Yeah.
Donald, are there countries that we could benchmark ourselves with? Countries where we have a large cohort of young people sitting in parliament, making decisions, ensuring that they inspire other young people to also be active in their little corners. Are there countries that we could benchmark ourselves with in terms of running a country in that way?
Most definitely. I'll just make one example. If you look at Namibia, there's one, I just forgot the name. There's one parliamentarian here, very young, I always follow a content. And you can see that this young person is always up to the standard, is equal to the task. So countries like Namibia, we should definitely benchmark ourselves against them. Because then, if we don't, then I see a bleak future. If really we do nothing, especially coming to these elections, I see a bleak future of which then these old leaders don't even be part of that future. So there are countries that can realize that a crisis is coming. So they are pushing young people to say, these old leaders won't be there by that time. So young people try to lend the ropes, they are pushing them. But South Africa, being South Africa, they wait for the cup of coffee to spill, that's when they will act. And it's important for us to have these discussions because then it shows that we care as young people. We are not arrogant towards our future. Thank you.
And showing that you can, you are actively participating, Gugu. You run a lot of social media activations in terms of speaking to young people. How do you think technology and social media has impacted political awareness and activism for young people?
So that's a very important question because we spoke about it with Zoleka earlier on, that we do wish that young people were using social media more for their education, especially when it comes to the policies of the country and how decisions are made. For example, I think young people, a lot of people, actually not only young people in the country, don't understand that if the ruling party still wins, we still have an opportunity to have other people in parliament who are going to raise their hands for us, right? It's not just the ruling party who are in parliament. So social media really has brought us so far, but at the same time, we are very far from the goal because we are really focusing on the wrong things on social media. I have really gotten the opportunity to watch all the manifestos summarized by someone on Instagram, which is great because we have so much going on as young people. Some of us are lazy to read, but social media is there for such reasons. So I think it is so important for us to take time to see how social media can help us with the fights that we're focusing on.
Speaking of that, Donald was shaking his head.
Yes, I'm so uncomfortable in us really thinking that the current political establishment will save this country. Because, for example, my colleague is saying if the ruling party wins, there are young people who can contribute whatsoever from the ANC, I'll say it. But how can a whole ruling party which goes to an impoverished community driving a G-Wagon save the country?
They can't.
They can't. How can the current leaders, which the DA, which will ban a national symbol, save the country? Do you think those people have the best interest at heart for the people of this country? I don't agree.
What do you think the young people within those political parties are saying? Are you saying they don't have a say?
My leader, yesterday, the day before yesterday, there was a debate there at Metro FM with Faith Mangope. And NEC, ANC Youth member just said political parties must use the state as a tool to further their own interest and agenda. And he was asked that question regarding Nasispan, to say, do you think Nasispan should serve the volunteers of the ANC? It should tell you something that if you are not an ANC member, you won't get employed in this country. A whole graduate, because I'm not voting for the ANC. I'm an NLP law student. Does that mean that I won't have employment after graduating just because I don't vote for ANC? Then I don't vote for ANC. And it's reality. I won't vote for ANC because it has failed. Even the DA.
Are there youth parties, do you think, with the parties that currently exist, are there any parties that you would say this represents young people?
At this point, the reason why I was, by the way, it was my first time voting this year. I haven't been voting for the past years because I was never convinced.
Oh, okay.
No, I missed two election cycles because the current political establishment or current political parties never spoke the language of young people. They never spoke the language of having a future realistic solutions for this country. But it's just a matter of just doing now. You drive G-Wagons, you are leadership, you just go around because you're NC Youth League leadership and then you're fine. You don't care about ordinary South Africans. You only care when it's coming to elections. But where were they, even before elections, 4 years ago? They were not there. Young people, specifically South Africans at large, must vote consciously. Very conscious, especially young people. Never vote because there's a TikTok challenge of ANC. Never vote because the ANC will give you a meal, will give you a drink on Friday and weekend just because we are going to elections. Even if you're a SASCO member, you know that every year we fight for NSFAS. You know that Bleeding Zimbabwe is arrogant. But you go into those challenges. But when you get to the polls, just vote for another party. We need new leaders. Simple as that.
Zoleka, I want to maybe shift the conversation a bit with you as an international youth leader. Do you think young South Africans have a global outlook to life? Do they understand the economics, the socio-economic issues that impact them from a global stance?
I don't think so.
And why not?
The reason being is because we are very we think everything ends here, and that has to also do with exposure. I don't think we have enough exposure to see what happens in other countries. You know, if we would do our research and meet other young people from other countries, we would know better on what they are doing in their countries. But I've had the privilege of meeting other young people around the globe, and they do share their experiences of how things are run in their countries. Obviously, different political views because we're not from the same country. But then I do think in South Africa, I'll mention it again, substance abuse is killing our youth. And I mention this because I'm also a young person. I see it killing a lot of young people. I feel like if young people could, slow down, I'm not saying stop because I'll get criticized for that.
And why do you think you would get criticized to say stop using drugs?
Because it's normalized. It's normalized. It has become such a norm for young people to be in those spaces.
And do we blame this on the older people?
I blame it on a lot of things. I don't think it's necessarily on the older people. I could blame it, maybe a certain percentage of it, on the apathy on politics. Because obviously, as Donald has said and Gugu has mentioned, that we don't have faith in our political system at the moment. So that could lead to a lot of stress, right? Because you know that I might finish school and still not get a job. I might be facing this issue. So there are a lot of issues that could lead to that. It could be depression and a way of escaping reality. I think that could be the reason. But also maybe just a way of having fun.
And that's just the thing, because, many older people, and maybe myself included, I'd count myself there, would feel that some of the young people of today have a lot of entitlement because surely the youth of 1976 was stressed. They had to navigate through bombs, racism, so much in their days that substance abuse was not the next and easiest thing to take. I'm not saying they did not have their own social ills, but we need to understand what our role is in our own communities, in our own homes, before we expect the government to come in, step in, and be the ones to take over our lives. Because it's our lives. When they drive in their G-Wagons, we are left with ourselves to live with.
Exactly.
And if you're going to turn to substance abuse and that's the only thing you have for yourself, you can't put that on anyone else because it's the choices we make. Gugu, I just want us to touch on Echoes of 76. Talk us through that program and how it entails or looks to help young people in understanding democracy.
So our tagline on Echoes of 76 is the youth of 1976 reincarnated, because I always look back and I'm like, those people were fearless. Our heroes did not plan a lot. I watched a documentary the other day and it wasn't a series of planned meetings because they couldn't even meet. So they just got together one day and they're like, we're doing this on this day, and they did that. So what Echoes of 76 is trying to do is trying to firstly educate people, but through the spirit of the youth of 1976, because we have lost that. We are so comfortable. You spoke about entitlement, that a lot of older people are saying, you guys are very entitled. You know, somebody said that to us during our interview earlier, that you guys are entitled. They say that we have expectations. You're expecting to be spoon-fed. So what we're trying to do as Echoes of 76 is that we're trying to bring back that fighting spirit, obviously not in the streets burning tires, but through education, through just getting together and seeing what we can do as young people to fight, through social media, of course, you know, to fight the current issues that we have. So that is basically what we're doing.
Donald, if 30 years from now, the youth of then were to look back on some of the work that you're doing, what would you want them to know and remember? And when I say you, I'm talking about the young people that are in active spaces that you guys are currently in, ensuring that you change the country. What would you want to be remembered for?
Mark your presence. There's no one who will save us but ourselves, unfortunately. And we must know that even if, in fact, I don't want young people to think this country will change overnight. Easy come, easy go, by the way. So young people must know that even if they don't get to enjoy the fruits of the fighting that we are currently in right now, they must know that it's not really an L, it's not a lose, no. They are registering their names in the history books, but also they are contributing. Because remember, 1976, they thought that they will reform the country in 1976, but it was not the case, but only in 1994. In 2024, we are fighting right now for this country, and our names are registered on the history books. I want young people to know that in 30 years to come from now, they will be cherished because they would have started this whole race, this battlefield. So basically, we are handing over like batons generation by generation. We cannot just sit down at home and just take drugs and alcohol, think this country will change. No. If not you, but think for your sibling who's coming. If not you in UJ or VETS or Sidibeng College, think for your sibling who's currently in matric on grade 11. To say that if NSFAS does not reform and be for the better, and Blade must go, then your sibling will suffer. So start fighting the system now. Everything must start now with us, no one else.
And you don't think we've come somewhat astride with NSFAS? The fact that during my time we had to pay it back, I'm assuming now you don't.
Yeah, we don't. The problem, NSFAS is trying. I can see the direction that they're going to, but there's this element of corruption. Comrades are corrupt. And one thing about South Africa, accountability is our enemy. People don't take accountability. Why don't you charge people who have looted? Their CEO, their chairman. Where are they now? They think we are fools. Right now, it's all quiet. It's elections, it's busy. It's all quiet. Next year, someone else will loot. And by the way, chasing the CEO and the chairman away doesn't mean that the element of corruption is gone. No. There are still people there who looted. And I can tell you right now, some students, in fact, in TVET college, you get the allowance in October, and it's a norm. And right now in university, they're writing tests right now. They're expected to pass. If you don't pass, you get an F7. If you don't pass, NSFAS will exclude you. But there's no allowance. But we have a right to education. But we have a Blade there sitting there in Pretoria in air-conditioned offices. Chilling in jail is fine. A whole SACP member.
Zoleka,
it's a shame.
Your dreams for the youth of 30 years to come?
My dream for... Okay, so everything I do is not for the youth today, like Donald has said. It's for the children that are still growing up, that are, you know, looking up to us, of course, that, you know, I envision a better future for them than the future that we have. I envision a world where they don't have to worry much about, you know, education. It's in excess. So what I would say is that we need to be the change that we want to see, basically 30 years from now. I don't know how to put it in words, but if only we can just start realizing that the now is what we have and what we can control as young people, and we do have the power as young people to do that, then yeah, we can be marked in the history books in the future, but then we don't have to, you know, do anything radical, because already there has been a lot of stuff radically happening for us to be sitting here already. So we are entitled, we are we are privileged. We are speaking from a point of privilege. The fact that we do have access to all this information and we choose to be ignorant says something. So if we can just work on the now, and we'll see what the future holds, but the future is not for us. Remember, it's for the children that are still coming up, our little brothers and sisters, our children.
Those that are coming after
That are
you.
still
And
coming
I like that
after me.
accountability aspect of it, to acknowledge that everyone has their flaws,
Yeah.
the old, the young, but we all have a responsibility in shaping this country to become one that we are proud of and one that will continue to flourish for all generations.